We're going to, we've exited executive session. We are going to reopen our work session and deliberation. For the record, I would note that Chuck DeLuca was not at the second hearing, but has reviewed the Vimeo of that and has familiarized himself with the record as it stands. We are here in a special meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a remand from the Superior Court in the case of Bruce E. Gulick et al. Versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of the town of Darien. The property address is 42 Beach Drive, Darien, Connecticut, and the owner of the property is Gene Seske. In this file, there are 5 requested variances. There's a request for a variance in section 406, asking for 23 feet in lieu of the 40-foot minimum required front yard setback, and 30.5 feet in lieu of 65 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the raised structures with additional front and back gables. And to be clear, that is lifting raised, not removing from the property raised. The second requested variance is 28 feet in lieu of 40 feet minimum required front yard setback and 35.5 feet in lieu of 65 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the south side addition. The third requested variance is 9.8 feet in lieu of 15 feet minimum required north side yard setback for the garage. The fourth variance that's being requested is 20.4 feet in lieu of 40 feet minimum required front yard setback and 27.9 feet in lieu of 65 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the covered entry. And the fifth requested variance is 9.7 feet in lieu of 37 feet minimum front yard setback and 17.2 feet in lieu of 62 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the entry steps. So those are the variances that are being requested from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll now go through a brief description of the property. The property is shown on a zoning location and topographical survey prepared by William W. Seymour. That was survey was item number 38 of the record. This property is at the end of Beach Drive, so at the terminus of Beach Drive, where there is a turnaround in front of the property. The area across the street from the house is a turnaround area and does not contain another residence. This portion of Beach Drive is a private road. It is located in an R1.5 acre zone, which is a residential zone in Darien, Connecticut. The zoning chart, I think it's important to note, shows that the required minimum lot size is 21,780 square feet or 0.5 acres for a minimum lot area. The zoning chart on the survey notes that the subject property contains 9,615 square feet and thus is undersized by 12,165 square feet. The zone requires 4.5 acres as I stated, and the lot has 0.2207 acres and is undersized by 0.2793. The zoning chart on that survey also notes a required lot depth for the zone of 100 feet, and this property only has approximately 85 feet of lot depth, which is 15 feet short. Okay, so there's also notes on the map showing the FEMA flood mapping for this property. The survey shows the areas which are VE, elevation 14 flood zone, and the areas that are within the AE elevation 14 flood zone. That information has been taken from a firm map, and there's a map number that's referenced in the record. The entire property is in the AE 14 flood zone, and the Darien zoning regulations require the finished first floor of the residence be at least 1 foot above the base elevation of 14, making a 15-foot requirement for the first floor. The survey shows the existing topography on the property, and the current highest point on this property is 9.43 feet, which is on the northern property line. So that would be a substantial raise of the property to be in conformity with the Darien zoning regulations. The survey also shows the various setbacks for the R1.5 acre zone. It actually lays out a building envelope in that map. The zoning regulations have a 40-foot front yard as measured from the front property line, a 65-foot front yard setback as measured from the center line of the street in front of the house, a side yard of 15, and a 25-foot rear yard. That's a 25-foot rear yard setback. The reason for the two settlements is there is a section 406C of the zoning regulations requires that. And we can include by reference that section of the zoning code. Beach Drive is a right of way that's less than 50 feet, and therefore Section 406C applies. Basically, the conforming building envelope is a 4.5. Where was it? I lost it now.
So when applying those setbacks,
right, it's 4.5 feet deep by. There's nicely laid out. I don't see it now. It creates a very narrow and
you can see it on. I think we can see it on this chart that was provided, where the highlighted area is the buildable area.
What exhibit is that, Gary?
This is Exhibit 38. It's the survey of the property, but it's been highlighted by town staff to show the buildable area, which is a very thin, long.
So Exhibit 38 in the record, then the green portion of Exhibit 38 shows the buildable area?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
yeah, and that buildable area is approximately 4.5 feet deep. So
Yeah, wide. Yeah, it'll be a very narrow house.
yes. No part of the existing house is within the building envelope. The front yard setback is now 19.9 feet in lieu of 40 feet and 27.4 feet from the center line of Beach Drive. The side yard setback on the north side is now 10.3 feet in lieu of 15, and the rear yard setback is 24.6 and 24.9 feet in lieu of 25 feet. It's important to note that any construction on this property would require a variance because of the small size of the building envelope. One other thing that's important to note, and Vic, this will be interesting to you, the building coverage, as you know, is 20%. The existing current coverage is 21%, and under their proposed plan, their building coverage will come down to 19.0%.
So they're going to make a non-conforming building coverage conforming. Is that right?
Yeah, I just want to note though that the survey says that the proposed is 19.7, not 19.0.
Okay, that's good.
Again, I'm just referring to the survey, which is Exhibit 38. But it's still an improvement.
Still below the 20% required.
Correct.
Okay. I'll go through the proposed project. The applicant provided architectural plans that show the proposed additions to the property, and those are item 39 of the record. The applicant also submitted a proposed site development plan, which is item 40 of the record. The applicant submitted a revised item K dated April 28, 2016.
2017.
Sorry, excuse me, 2017, item 9 of the record. And that includes a proposed lift to the residence in place to elevation 17.46 to fill in the basement to provide for wet storage area, to raise, meaning to remove the garage and rebuild it longer to accommodate a 9-foot by 20-foot parking space dimension. They're going to replace the masonry rear patio and roof pergola with elevated wooden deck at elevation 17 and the roof above. Replace an attic shed dormer with a gable dormer and reduce the attic square footage in order to comply with the maximum floor area regulations. They're also going to construct a front door entry, covered porch, and staircase. The applicant's item K notes the following existing nonconformities that will be eliminated. The flood regulations, basement space, and minimum first floor elevation will be complied with, which is not currently. As we discussed before, the building coverage will come into conformity. Excuse me. In the undersized parking spaces, I believe that's the off-street parking that's required, will come into conformity by the addition of the garage space. The proposed garage is no closer to the north property line than the existing garage. And the request for second floor over the garage was granted by the ZBA with the condition that it be reduced and modified to comply with the 15-foot side yard setback. Doing good so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, done great.
Consistent with our recollection of the property and the proposals.
So there's a number of unusual hardships on this site, and we'll go through, I think, a few important ones that we're going to base our decisions on. The house, when this house was built, it complied with the Darien zoning regulations. The regulations were revised, so they provided for a 4.5 foot deep by 72 feet wide building area. So if you think about that, to build a conforming house on this property, it would have to be 4 feet wide. I don't even think modern construction, would allow you to build that structure. So clearly, we've as a town approved a lot, and we've created a building envelope that doesn't allow the fair use of the property. The revisions to the Darien zoning regulations created 15 nonconformities that are identified in Exhibit 46. Is that, Gary, help me there, what exhibit is that? Is that part of the record?
Yeah, I don't think that number's correct.
Which
At
number?
least we don't have 46 items in the return.
Okay, that may be referring directly to the ongoing
So
regulation.
my understanding is changes to the zoning regs have created a undersized lot problem, the minimum depth problem, the maximum square problem, the front yard problem, the coverage problem, the side yard problem, the rear yard problem, the garage space problem, and a habitable third floor problem. So that's to name a few nonconformities that were created when the zoning regulations were imposed and upgraded.
And then to add on top of that, the FEMA regulations and the town of Darien's regulations regarding properties in the flood zone. The property's not up to the current building code. There are certainly safety concerns where electrical, plumbing, and mechanicals are in the flood zone. And they're also proposing to reduce the nonconformity by reducing the habitable space in the attic. We discussed that there's not a viable place to build a residence. Yeah, they continue to reduce nonconformities with area depth. And their the area and bulk rules, all of that. And then the question is, are there hardships? The hardships on this lot. The hardships are caused by the undersized lot, the updating of the regulations, which establish a buildable area that does not allow for the practical use of the property without variances. The original placement of the residence on the lot, which was done in a conforming location when it was built. The need for houses in the neighborhood to be lifted to comply with FEMA regulations. The loss of habitable space in a lifted house to accommodate mechanical equipment previously located in the basement. The loss of habitable space in the attic to conform with the updated regulations. All of these combined to form hardships. We struggled as a board with lifting these houses and how people can take all of their mechanicals out of a basement or a lower storage area and find conforming locations for them that conform with the FEMA regulations, but also conform with the zoning regulations. And it is a safety concern. It is a safety hazard to have those in non-conforming locations.
So I'd like to note for the record, which I think we probably did in the prior hearings and deliberations. In this case, they're improving some existing nonconformities, but in lifting the house out of the flood zone in order to comply both with FEMA and then the 1 foot additional requirement for the town, they are not asking for height variance. So the proposal is consistent with our height restrictions. They're not going over that. Whether we would grant that or not is immaterial. They're not asking for it. So I think that's an important, given the neighbors' concerns, I think that's an important thing. They're not going asking for height variance.
That's true.
Yep.
And Mr. Chairman, so would the reduction in the non-conformities provide an alternate legal basis for our granting the variance?
Yeah, I think we've seen that in other cases where we've found an alternate basis where there wasn't a hardship, but they were improving other nonconformities. And then obviously the compliance with the FEMA regulations just makes it tough in these sites. And I think, Chuck, you were there for the public hearing where the neighbors were adamant that they weren't going to raise their house, and it's just it's not a realistic view of where we are and what FEMA is requiring for these houses for them to even be insured. So I don't have anything further for the record unless someone else does.
Yeah, I just want to note as we're kind of talking about, again, in noting what the plan is and recalling what the plaintiff in the litigation, what the neighbors objected to during the hearing. They objected to things relating to the area and the bulk requirements that are embodied in the variance requests. And they're looking for kind of aesthetic or privacy concerns or views of the water, although there's no view easements that we know of here. On the flip side of it, the applicant seeking the variance is lifting the house for health and safety concerns. And I think it's fair for us to balance the objections with the purpose of the proposal, and I would argue that the purpose to raise the house lift it out of harm's way is a critical and an important motivation here.
Agreed.
Yeah, and, especially in light of the objections, I think what will be heard is that, there were views from the neighbor's porch or their house out to the water, and, I think,
And those are impacted, I get it, but, as we deliberated before, and I think we agree tonight, the owners of this residence probably should lift it out of harm's way, and their proposal does that, and is justified based upon the hardships that we go through one by one.
yeah, no, they do, and they're doing it in a meaningful manner, right?
Yeah.
They've come to us and they've reduced nonconformities.
Yep.
They've worked with staff in trying to come up with a plan that made sense for this site. The other thing, I guess, that needs to be mentioned is the items that we found previously, relating to being the minimum adjustment necessary, that it's in harmony with the neighborhood and things of that nature.
And the finding about the basement versus the number of stories, I think all that should be incorporated.
Incorporated by reference into the record here tonight. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I clarify just on a factual point?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, John Luizos, counsel for the town of Darien. With respect to a statement about return of record item 46,
Yes.
I'm only correcting a factual statement. There was a statement that's not part of the record. August 16th, 2018, Attorney Gleason filed a motion to correct the return of record.
Okay.
As part of that, item 46, which is the 15 item number
Yes.
hardship chart, it was by consent of the parties added to the record. So your statement about record 46 was in fact correct,
Okay.
and that is part of the proceedings.
And then I think I kind of summarized many, if not all, of those items.
Yes, so items 46 and 47, and I double checked on my phone, the judicial website, just to clarify that fact. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I think we can go through the variances individually and look at the hardships associated with them.
Okay.
And I just for you, Chuck, do we do that on a motion, or do we make the motion after we go through each of the variances?
Well, that's a good question, but I think we can go through each one separately and then make one motion.
One motion at the
Yeah.
end? Okay. All right, so the first variance that was requested was section 406, requesting 23 feet in lieu of 40 feet minimum required front yard setback, and 30.5 feet in lieu of 65.0 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the raised structure with additional front and back gables. The hardship here, to me, is pretty clear, and I think we're going to see a little bit of consistency in this, but the original location of the residence in the center of the property that was constructed in 1926. The fact that no portion of the house or garage is located within the existing buildable area, and the adoption of updated regulations that reduce the buildable area to 4.5 feet by 71 feet area of approximately 315 square feet. Those create the nonconformities, including setbacks, building coverage, parking space size, and location of noncompliance within the flood regulations. So I think there are hardships there, and even if there weren't, I think what we've seen in some of the applications is that the fact that the property doesn't have sufficient buildable envelope is an alternate way to look at this and creates a hardship. And then I think, Chuck, to your point earlier, the alternate of the reduction of the nonconformities in granting us the ability to grant variances where they're substantially reducing other nonconformities on the property.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important fact for us to consider, and I get the sense that we are considering that. I think that's another grounds to approve the application, along with all the others that you've referenced.
Although I'm not sure, it's hard for me to figure out whether this particular variance requested an improvement or not. I think in general.
No, that,
It's
correct.
in
That was a sort of an overall statement.
Yeah.
For this particular variance request, I agree with the hardships that you identified are relevant to that variance request. And I think support an approval of that variance request.
So I think we clearly found a hardship here. We'll take these as a group of requested variances and make a vote at the end on the totality of them. So the second requested variance was 28 feet in lieu of 40-foot minimum required front yard setback and 35.5 feet in lieu of 65.0 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the south side addition. Again, it doesn't really change that. The location of the property, which you stated previously, really makes it difficult. It was built in a conforming location when it was built. We have change regulations that have made this a non-conformity. Also, the fact that a portion of the house is located with no portion, of the house or garage is located within the existing buildable area. So I see those same hardships existing for this variance.
And the south side would face Long Island Sound, right?
Correct.
So then there's no other houses to the south
That is correct.
of this, okay?
And I agree that the hardships you articulated support the variance request.
Agreed.
The next variance was 9.8 feet in lieu of 15 feet minimum required north side yard setback for the garage. Okay. So again, the fact that no portion of the house or the garage is located within the existing buildable area, and that the existing garage is too structurally deficient and too close to the north side yard of the garage is needed for an ordered property, and it's needed to conform to the zoning regulations. Having that second off-street parking spot, especially in this unique location. Beach Drive has that, we've all been down there, it's got that turnaround, but it's a fairly narrow street, and there's not a lot of room for cars to park on the street. So I think then, fixing that nonconformity is great. When we looked at that, we found that was a sufficient hardship for the first floor, the garage, because they needed that extra parking, but not for the second floor.
Right, so they presented plans, but we didn't think there was a minimal adjustment necessary for the second, and that justified the volume on the second floor of that setback, so it has to be stepped back to the 15 feet setback line.
Right.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. The next variance that was asked for, and this is the second to last variance, is 20.4 feet in lieu of 40 feet, minimum required front yard setback, and 27.9 feet in lieu of 65 feet, minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the covered entry. So the hardship here is that the lifting of the house will obviously lift the front door.
Right.
And they need some means for ingress and egress to the house. I mean, some.
To get up to that height.
To get up to that height.
Right, so you need to extend that stairway into the front yard setback accordingly.
Right. So, that seems pretty clear with the FEMA regulations being what they are, and being that that's a health and safety issue.
And we also have found in many cases, as we did here, that having a covered entry is appropriate too for safety. So even if it were ground level, we don't permit a covered entry. So here, I think permitting a covered entry is appropriate for safety and concerns.
And then there's also, I guess it should be noted that the lifting of the house is eliminating the non-conforming basement from the flood zone to comply with the flood regulations. So they're going to eliminate that non-conformity as part of this.
And we like that.
Absolutely. And then and you talked about the covered porch.
Yeah.
We live in the Northeast, you get snow, really nice. Okay, so we did find a hardship as relates specifically to that requested variance as well. 9.7 feet in lieu of 37 feet minimum front yard setback, and 17.2 feet in lieu of 62 feet minimum required front yard setback as measured from the center line of Beach Drive for the entry steps. So
that's really the steps to get up to the covered porch. So we kind of addressed that.
yeah, so just to be clear, the covered porch was a necessity for safety reasons. And the steps are necessary for very similar reasons, very similar hardship to the covered porch. But specific to that, there needs to be a way to get up to the new raised front door. I don't have much further to say unless, Chuck, you have anything to add to the record.
No, I don't think I do, Mike. I think you covered everything pretty thoroughly.
Jeff?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So, based on that, I will make a motion to approve the variances as discussed, noting in particular that we did not approve the second floor of the garage. It has to be moved back to conform with the 15-foot side yard setback.
You incorporate the previously imposed conditions.
We would incorporate the previously imposed conditions and stipulations, Woody. And I did not turn far enough to my right to ask you if you had anything further to add.
No, I think you have some documents that were requested to have available right on the table for you.
I think we'll take a look at what we need to during this session.
The executive session.
Yeah, well, during this session, we referred to what we needed to. The site plan was very important, as was the item K.
Yeah.
So I will second that motion.
So, yeah, motion to approve, seconded, all in favor? Okay. Granted, 5, yes. Okay, other business, Woody, we've got approval of the April 10th, 2019.
Yes, please.
I move to approve those minutes. I reviewed them. I think they were correct. Mike, you're the only one on that, other than me.
I make a motion
Gary and Mike were here. I did hear from Ruth Ann Bar Van Dan, we're all fine with those minutes.
Okay, so I'll second that, in favor. Aye. Okay, with all that,
Can I impose on making my last motion as a member of the ZBA?
Yes, you may, as long as it's the right one.
Can I move to adjourn?
absolutely.
Can I second that? May I have the honor of seconding that?
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, Councilman.
Gary, thanks very much, man.
Yep.